What kept my spiritual sanity was a belief in Jesus and in a sacred good. I thought outwardly that there was nothing of value to me, but inwardly I knew that I had accomplished good in not beating any of my brothers. The involuntary insane rage that would sometimes come upon me was always several hours removed from a beating. It hit me when I least expected it. I was a danger to my younger brothers. I did not want to be like my father and do to anyone what was being done to me. I believed this was a virtue. I held on to this belief for dear life. I tried to have faith in the triumph of good over evil, yet the repetition of the beatings, losing my mind, being broken over and over, and never a let up or an escape. I then sought hope elsewhere than the outward reality in which I lived. My hope most always took shape in a feminine form. When I thought a woman, I imagined romance through a relationship of boyfriend and girlfriend. I imagined flirtation, intrigue, and being together. The denial of what I experienced from my father was going to school and pretending that it didn't happen. I was a young adult seeking to study and learn in my school classes so I could go to college and advance myself in life. I believed in false truth. I denied the irreparable harm that was being done to me. My will to live was one of not acknowledging the torment, shame, and humiliation that I continued to experience. I was 14. I no longer played baseball, but I still listened to a lot of the Pirates games on the radio and watched some of them on TV. Summer came to an end, and the beginning of the school year in the 10th grade came for me. The difference between the 9th and 10th grade was I no longer had any illusions about playing sports and being a star. I wanted to be on the school honor roll for academic achievement. Algebra was my favorite subject, and I was proud of how good I was at doing numbers and solving equations. History was my second favorite subject. It was compelling reading about accounts of what happened with different people and countries during various time periods. The other subjects were of less interest to me. I couldn't concentrate enough to study my schoolwork. It was next to impossible for me to memorize any of the facts or readings from any of my classes, and the comprehension or understanding of what I read was extremely poor. I was immersed in following the local football teams, Penn State, the University of Pittsburgh, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I listened to their games on the radio or watched them on TV, or read about them in the sports pages of the local newspaper. In school, even though I was an outsider and weak physically, I wasn't shunned or ridiculed like I had been in the 9th grade. This was a tremendous improvement in my attempted relations with other guys. Though I didn't have any friends, I did have a couple of acquaintances from within the classrooms. I was still a paper boy, so I always had a couple of dollars in my pocket. Before classes began in the morning, the students would stand in small groups outside in certain areas, segregated by boy, girl, and whatever grade you were in. One of guys was making it known that he bet on the football games played Saturday and Sunday by playing football cards where you picked at least 4 teams. You could choose as many as 10 teams. But then all the teams that you chose, they all had to win in order for you to win the football card. I pulled him aside one morning and said that I would like to play 2 of the football cards for the upcoming games this weekend. He made the connection for me with a guy in the 12th grade who told me that he was acting as a frontman for a bookmaker in town. I played 2 cards for 50 cents each for that weekend's game. I lost both of the cards as at least one of the teams lost that I picked to win. The following 2 weeks, when I played 2 football cards again for 50 cents each, I lost again. The next weekend I won. On one of the 2 cards that I played, I had picked 10 teams. The card's odds for choosing all 10 teams to win was 200 to 1. Since I bet 50 cents on that card, that meant that I was due to be paid $100 for winning. I was euphoric. $100 back in 1962 was a lot of money. That Monday at school, the guy in the 12th grade I bet the 10-team card with made an arrangement with me to meet at a certain street corner during the early evening to pay me off. I was there, and he drove up in his car and parked. I got in the car. He paid me $100 and said it was customary to give him a tip because he sold me the card that I won the $100 from. I gave him $5. Before I got out of the car, he cautioned me against telling anyone that I bought and bet these football cards from him because what he was doing was illegal. He didn't want to get into any trouble and get arrested by the police. The word that did get out to the whole student body, maybe 400 kids, was that I won $100 betting and picking correctly 10 teams that all won that weekend. I became an instant celebrity in school. It was great. Guys who never had anything to do with me would come up congratulating me, expressing awe and admiration that all 10 of the teams that I picked to win that I had won $100. I went to the school classes Monday and came in about a minute or 2 before each of the classes started. Guys who were already in class or coming in would see me and say, "There's Neely. He played a 10-team football ticket and won $100. Suddenly, I was a football expert. Why did you pick those teams? How did you know those teams were going to win?" I would patiently explain to each who asked that I studied the games that were played the previous week, along with the player and game statistics for each of the teams. Then I would make an educated guess as to which team would play well and which team wouldn't. On Monday and Tuesday, I had never felt so happy and excited to be at school. After I was paid the $100, I began to give considerable thought to making a donation to the church. I had learned in grade school from the nuns that 10% of the money that I made should be given as a contribution to the Catholic Church that I regularly attended. That Tuesday afternoon after school, I went into the church. There was only one or two people in there. In the front of the altar to its right was a stand holding at least 50 candles, each one in a small red glass container. There were maybe 5 rows of them set up on the stand. I had learned from attending Wednesday morning Mass in grade school and from the nuns that this stand had a metallic box as big as a shoebox attached to it. There was an open slit to put your donation in, and it would fall to the bottom. I felt so fortunate in winning the $100 that I thought of it as a blessing. I walked up to the candle stand. I picked up a thin stick and was on the stand and lit the tip of it from one of the candles. I touched the tip to an unlit candle that I chose. I pushed a $10 bill into the opening of the donation box. I knelt in front of the stand. I said a short prayer. I gave thanks to the life I was living. I felt like a special person whom God favored. My present day. I did not self-will the atheism that I have experienced throughout my adult life. I have, with my self-will, continually blocked out my ugly, horrid past. So I would have a freedom to live and experience my life without being dragged down to lower levels of thought, feeling, and being. I tried to avoid spite, revenge fantasies, depression, unhappiness, and self-inflicted misery. Yet often I experienced an abuse, an absence of inner guiding light. It was a beginning of being spiritually insane without being aware that I was traveling downwards upon a path that was diminishing the heart of my living soul by the day. I am seeking a higher realm of dimension in thought, feeling, and being. I can be an explorer, seeking to ask the right questions that will lead to spiritual solutions of how I can experience my inner life in a way of light and spirit. I can be a detective seeking to solve a mystery of inner creation by uncovering higher truths. A noble endeavor is to seek a spark of inspiration towards creative thought and action.